everybody. Welcome back to Goodnight, Lighthouse. I'm Miss Dorothy, and I'm here to read you another story. And I've got a really interesting book tonight. It's just about somebody that I'm not real happy with, but we need to find out what's going to happen. This book is called King Hugo's Huge Ego. King Hugo's Huge Ego. Do you know what an ego is? An ego is what you think of yourself. So if you think that you're better than other people, then you have a huge ego, and it's not a good thing to have. And King Hugo, he has a huge ego, and it gets him into some trouble. And we're going to have to get in this book and find out what happens, and if he can get over his bad attitude and his huge ego. Are you ready to get inside this book with Miss Dorothy and find out what happens to King Hugo? Good. I need you to sit up and listen up, because here we go. King Hugo's Huge Ego, written by Chris Van Dussen. Long ago, when people spoke with words like thou and thee, there lived a king named Hugo, who was only 3'3". And though this mini monarch stood no higher than an elf, his ego was enormous. He thought highly of himself. He's a short little king, but he's a very proud one. Yes, Hugo was a cocky king, as boastful as could be. To him no other person was as wonderful as he. He made his subjects bow to him whenever he was nigh. It pleased him to look down on them each time that he went by. Oh, he's definitely not very nice to people with that huge ego. And every Friday morning at precisely 10:30, his guards called all the people to the tower base, and then King Hugo cleared his throat and gave his captive congregation a lengthy talk he liked to call the speech of adoration. For hours the poor villagers endured the boring buzz of how mighty and magnificent King Hugo thought he was. One day King Hugo climbed aboard his coach of gleaming gold to watch the peasants bow to him as down the road he rolled. But when he turned a corner by a field of amber hay, a maiden with a heavy load was blocking up the way. Oh no, here comes the carriage, but there's a girl carrying all that heavy hay. The heralds blew their trumpets, then called out to the lass, "Step aside and bow your head, allow the king to pass." The girl, whose name was Tessa, said bluntly, "Go around." She didn't want to drop her load and bow down on the ground. The king began to rant and rave and spout and spit and sputter. "Roll on," he barked, and then they bumped poor Tessa to the gutter. Oh no, he just ran right into her, knocked her down, and she dropped all her hay. She landed in a rivulet. Oh, what a muddy mess. But little did King Hugo know she was a sorceress, the kind with special powers like a wizard or a witch. So she cast a spell upon the king while mired in the ditch. "A pox on you, O cocky king in robes of ruby red. Let's see if all your arrogance can fit inside your head." The next day when the king awoke, he climbed down from his bed and gazed into his looking glass, admiringly it said, "I do believe, dear Hugo, you're more handsome than last night." But when he put his crown back on, it felt a little tight. Then he donned his crimson robe, the one with emerald fringe. "How grand I am," the king exclaimed. Then he felt a little twinge. Oh no. Every time he says something proud about himself, his head gets bigger. His crown seemed even tighter now, yet Hugo didn't care. He hollered from his window to the people in the square. "Say, who's the most magnificent king? 'Tis I, you must admit." But when he pulled his head back in, it almost didn't fit. His head's getting bigger and bigger. Every time he claimed to be the greatest in the land, the king perceived a tingle and felt his head expand. But he continued bragging in his overstated way, and so his head kept bloating, bulging bigger every day. By Friday, Hugo's head was huge, but still he didn't know that his self-directed compliments had caused his head to grow. His speech of adoration was scheduled as before, but when he reached the tower, he could not fit through the door. Oh no, his head's gotten so big. He marched across the courtyard to climb the open stair. Then he called the people to the wall and gave his speech from there. Behold, my lowly subjects, and do not doubt thine eyes. For yea, my noble noggin has increased tenfold in size. I know not how this happened, but now there's even more of your absolutely fabulous King Hugo to adore. He's even proud of the big giant head. The more he talked, the more he grew, till suddenly a squall hit the king's gigantic head and pitched him off the wall. Uh-oh, a big wind came and blew him away like a giant balloon. He floated freely through the air, then landed with a thud. He bopped and dipped and flipped and skipped and toppled through the mud. He tumbled topsy-turvy and he bounced along the lane. Oh no, he can't stop. And ended up by Tessa, who was busy stacking grain. King Hugo's head was spinning. He felt dizzy, dazed, and beat. But when he noticed Tessa, he yelled, "Get me to my feet!" Tessa wandered over. "Unbelievable," she sighed. "Did you ever stop and wonder why your head is 10 feet wide? It's your ego. It's annoying. So I cast a little spell, and every pompous thing you've said has caused your head to swell." "That's ludicrous, ridiculous, preposterous, insane. I'm humbler than anyone," the king snapped in disdain. "I'll prove it to you," she replied. "You've been this way for years. Just listen," ordered Tessa. Then she grabbed and tweaked his ears. Suddenly a blast of air exploded from his head, along with all the haughty things King Hugo ever said. It's all coming out now. "I rule, glorious, look at me. Bow down, praise me. I'm so magnificent. Mine, mine, mine." Now he's getting to hear all of his own words. King Hugo's head deflated like a giant pink balloon, and when he heard what he had said, he felt like a buffoon. Sheepishly he said to her, "I do apologize." Then he looked at Tessa with his big, sad puppy eyes. Their glances met, and instantly she felt her heart go zing. Could it be, deep down inside, she kind of liked the king? The king got up, he took her hand, and bent down on his knee. He gazed at her with tenderness, then spoke most humbly. "Your spell has opened up my eyes. I've been unkind and rude. Please stay with me and teach me how to change my attitude." Now the king wants Tessa's help. He doesn't want to be a proud, arrogant king anymore. What happened next was kismet, yet truly unforeseen. He became a better man, and she became the queen. They ruled the kingdom kindly, in a fair and friendly way, and everyone lived happily forever and a day. The end. That turned out to be a great book. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because I didn't like that King Hugo had a huge ego and he was so proud and boastful. He thought he was better than everybody else. And then he met Tessa. And Tessa taught him a big lesson about what happens when your head gets too big. Your head gets too big when you think that you're better than everybody else. And what happened to King Hugo? He found out, I'm not better than everybody else. And Tessa helped him figure that out. And then they got married and she became queen. And now they run a very happy kingdom and nobody has a huge ego anymore. It was a good book. I didn't know if I was going to like it, but I really, really do. That's what happens sometimes with books. You're just not sure if you're going to like it, and then you read it and you find out it's great, and it has a really happy ending. I love happy endings, and I love that Tessa became queen. That made me really happy. But you know what I really love? I love when my friends don't have huge egos and bad attitudes. We need to be careful about that. Sometimes we'll be playing and we think, I know better than they do, and we try to get everybody to do things our way. That's not the way to do it. We need to realize that our friends are just as special and just as important as we are. And you need to have a good attitude when you play games, and you need to treat people kindly. Hugo did not treat people kindly, and that's why things went wrong for him. So, when you're out playing with your friends tomorrow, I want you to remember to be kind, to be fair, and to don't think you're better than everybody else. Very important lesson. And one more thing I want you to do tomorrow. What is it? Obey, and obey right away. And then come back and see Miss Dorothy, because I'm going to be sitting right here, ready to read another book to you. Bye! Thanks for reading with Miss Dorothy. I hope you enjoyed this book, and I hope you'll come back soon to read another. What's your favorite book? Drop Miss Dorothy a note and let me know. I'll go find it, and I'll read it to you. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you soon.